know that moment when you realize the person you've been protecting, defending, and loving for years has been making a fool of you? I do. But this story isn't just about finding out about an affair. This is about what happened when my ex-wife, so sure of her own cunning, decided to bring her lover into a courtroom and tried to use him against me. She believed she held all the cards. Little did she know I'd already located her lover's wife, a woman about to become the most crucial witness of my life. My name isn't important now, but back then, I was simply a guy who thought he had a stable marriage. I spent 15 years with Claire, raising 2 children, Olivia, who was 11, and Mason, 8. I worked in logistics management, earning a decent, reliable salary, nothing flashy. Claire had worked as a paralegal before the kids arrived, then chose to become a stay-at-home mom. We lived in the suburbs, owned a golden retriever, and spent our weekends at soccer games. To an outsider, we appeared to have everything figured out. The cracks began to show about 18 months before the whole thing blew up. Claire started acting distant. It wasn't the dramatic separation you see in movies. There were no secret phone calls or unfamiliar perfumes. Her detachment was more subtle. While she was physically present, her mind seemed elsewhere. When I talked about my day, her eyes would often glaze over. When I suggested date nights, she'd agree, but looked like she was just going through the motions. I rationalized it as stress. Mason had been struggling academically, so Claire took charge of his tutoring schedule. Olivia was entering that preteen phase where parental actions were inherently embarrassing. I convinced myself we were merely navigating a common rough patch inherent to any long-term marriage. That assumption was completely wrong. The truth started coming to light on a Tuesday in March. I was examining our credit card statements after noticing our expenditures were increasing, and I wanted to prevent overspending before our summer vacation. That's when I noticed the charges. Dinners at restaurants I'd never visited on nights I was working late, hotel bills in the nearby city, and expensive spa services. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Now to the rest of the story. When I questioned Claire about them, she didn't even react. Oh, those came from that women's retreat I mentioned. Remember, with the other school moms? I did recall her talking about a wellness trip, but these charges spanned 7 different weekends, which seemed excessive. I checked our calendar. On 3 of those dates, Claire had claimed she was taking the kids to her mother's house 2 hours away. I felt ill, yet I held off on confronting her immediately. That waiting instinct likely saved my access to my children. I began paying very close attention. Claire was incredibly careful, I'll admit. She never left her phone unsecured. She never took calls in front of me that seemed suspect, but she couldn't hide everything. There were those weekend emergency grocery store trips that lasted 2 hours, the sudden commitment to yoga classes that went until 9 p.m. 3 nights weekly. Then there was the fact that she got a new phone, claiming her old one totally died, preventing any data transfer. I'm not proud of my next move, but I installed tracking software on her new device. It took me 3 weeks to find an opportunity. She left it charging in the kitchen while she showered. 5 minutes was all I needed. What I discovered chilled me to the bone. She wasn't just having an affair. She had been seeing someone named Trevor for more than 2 years. Based on their messages, he wasn't some casual hookup. They discussed a future together, calling themselves soulmates who met at the wrong time, and expressing their mutual dislike for living a lie. This next detail utterly devastated me. Trevor was also married to a woman named Andrea, and they had 3 children. Yet, in these texts, Claire and Trevor treated Andrea like an inconvenience, not a person. They laughed about how oblivious both their spouses were and how simple it was to keep up the pretense. I captured screenshots of absolutely everything. Hundreds of messages, proof of hotel meetups, and evidence of money she'd been transferring from our joint account into a separate one I didn't know existed. They had even made plans to finally be together once they'd both secured favorable divorce terms. That last part led me to a horrifying realization. Claire wasn't simply cheating. She was preparing to divorce me. I pieced together that she planned to execute the split in a way that would leave me with nothing. I found an unsent draft email on her phone. She was probably smart enough to avoid creating that kind of permanent record. She'd addressed it to someone, perhaps Trevor or an attorney she'd consulted. In the email, she outlined a comprehensive strategy. She intended to claim I had anger management issues, that I was emotionally abusive, and that she feared for herself and the children. None of these accusations were true, but I instantly grasped her objective. If she could successfully portray me as unstable or dangerous, she would easily gain primary custody. She would get the house, and likely a large portion of my income and support payments. I would become the villain who lost his family due to an inability to control his temper, a temper I didn't possess. I am not a violent person. Over 15 years of marriage, I had never raised my voice to Claire or anyone else. I had never yelled at my children. The most aggressive thing I'd ever done was slam a cabinet door out of frustration with a work deadline. But I understood that in family court, accusations alone can be ruinous. Even if I eventually disproved them, the damage would already be irreversible. I had to stop this from happening. I contacted a lawyer the very next day. Not just any lawyer, but Jennifer Hartwell, a family attorney recommended by a colleague who survived a painful divorce. I shared everything: the affair, the tracking software, the messages, and the strategic plan I uncovered. Jennifer was frank. The tracking software falls into a legal gray area. We might not be able to use everything you found, but it provides us with a roadmap. We know what's coming, and we can get ready. That's more valuable than you realize. She instructed me to document all interactions. She told me to install security cameras with audio in common areas of our house only, which was completely legal since it was also my home. She told me to start keeping an exhaustive journal of every interaction with Claire, every moment with my children, and every financial transaction. If she's going to accuse you of instability, Jennifer said, we will build an evidence trail proving you are the most involved, stable, and loving father in this state. For 3 months, I led a double existence. I behaved as though everything with Claire was normal. I went to work, returned home, and we had family dinners. I helped Olivia with her science project. I coached Mason's Little League team. And every single night, I meticulously wrote down every detail. I did something else, too. I found Andrea, Trevor's wife. It wasn't difficult. Claire had mentioned Trevor's last name in her messages. Based on context clues, I knew he was in pharmaceutical sales. A quick search on LinkedIn took care of the rest. I found his profile, his company, and from there, his Facebook page. His page was private, but his wife's was not. Andrea's public profile was full of family pictures. Her, Trevor, and their 3 kids at birthday parties, beach trips, and soccer games. She had absolutely no clue. You could tell from every caption she wrote and every smiling photo she posted. She genuinely believed she had a happy marriage. I wrestled with the decision to tell her. It felt brutal to shatter her world. But Jennifer made an excellent point. If this case goes to court, if Claire attempts to use Trevor as a character witness, or if his presence becomes pertinent to your case, you need leverage. Andrea's testimony about Trevor's affair could be essential. She deserves the truth, and you deserve every resource available when Claire launches her attack. So, I messaged Andrea. The message was simple and direct. We've never met, but I'm married to the woman your husband has been having an affair with for 2 years. I have proof. We must talk. Initially, she didn't believe me. Would you believe a complete stranger on Facebook accusing your spouse of cheating? However, I sent her a few screenshots. They weren't explicit, but they were sufficient to show that Trevor and Claire were communicating frequently and saying things no married person should say to someone who isn't their spouse. We met at a coffee shop 3 days later. Andrea appeared exhausted, as if she hadn't slept since receiving my message. I brought physical printouts of the messages, photographs, and financial records showing the hotel charges. She cried. Then her tears turned to anger. After that, she became determined. He's been lying to me, saying he was traveling for work, she said quietly. All those weekends, I've been home alone with 3 children, managing everything, while he was with her. I'm sorry, I replied, and I truly meant it. Andrea looked at me with bloodshot eyes. What do you need from me? Honestly, I'm not certain yet. My wife intends to divorce me and falsely claim I'm abusive to gain custody of our children. It's all fabricated, but I need to be prepared for anything. If Trevor becomes involved in this, if she attempts to bring him into the court proceedings somehow, I might need you to testify about the affair. Andrea slowly nodded. I'll do it, but I need something in return. What is it? I want to file for divorce first. I want to blindside him exactly the way he blindsided me. And I want you to send me every piece of evidence you have concerning him and Claire. We shook hands. We were now allies, 2 betrayed spouses united against a common enemy. Claire filed for divorce 6 weeks later. Just as I had anticipated, her petition included allegations of emotional abuse, claims that I had fostered a hostile environment, and requests for primary physical custody with supervised visitation for me. Seeing it in print was a punch to the gut, even though I'd expected it. Supervised visitation, as if I posed a threat to my own children. My lawyer immediately filed our rebuttal. We denied every accusation and requested a comprehensive custody evaluation. We also requested temporary orders that would maintain the existing situation, both of us remaining in the house until the court reached a decision, shared access to all accounts, and joint custody of the children. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for late August. That's when the situation became intriguing. Claire arrived at court with her lawyer and with Trevor. He sat in the gallery right behind her, and during breaks, I observed him placing his hand on her shoulder and whispering encouragement in her ear. He was clearly there to support her, assuming the role of the devoted boyfriend who wanted to shield her from her supposedly abusive ex. It was a brazen move. She was essentially showcasing the affair, likely because her lawyer had advised her that infidelity held little weight in a no-fault divorce state. She was correct. The affair itself wouldn't cost her custody. However, she didn't realize that Trevor's very presence provided me with the opportunity one needed. During a short recess, Jennifer leaned in. He's here. I see him. This is our green light. If he's going to insert himself into these proceedings, we can absolutely subpoena him as a witness. And if we call him, we can call anyone with pertinent information regarding his character and credibility. I nodded. Proceed. The actual custody hearing was set for 3 weeks later. In the interim, my lawyer submitted a witness list. Claire's name was on it, naturally. Trevor's name was on it, and Andrea's name was on it. Claire's lawyer immediately contacted my attorney. Why are you calling Trevor's wife? She has no relevance to this case. Jennifer's reply was masterful. Trevor has made himself relevant by attending proceedings and offering emotional support to Miss Claire. He is clearly involved in her life and potentially in the lives of the minor children. We believe his character and credibility are essential to the court's custody decision, and we believe his wife possesses information regarding both. They attempted to oppose the subpoena, arguing it was harassment and irrelevant. The judge disagreed. If Mr. Trevor intends to be a part of these children's lives after the divorce, the judge stated, the court has a vested interest in understanding his character. The subpoena will stand. I'll never forget the look of absolute panic on Claire's face when she heard that. The hearing began with standard procedural matters, financial disclosures, and parenting time schedules. Then came the accusations. Claire's lawyer put her on the stand and prompted her to describe years of alleged emotional abuse, how I supposedly controlled the finances, isolated her from friends, and belittled her. None of it was true, but she was a very convincing witness. She managed to cry at the perfect moments. She gave the judge these wounded, vulnerable looks. Then it was my lawyer's turn for cross-examination. Miss Claire, you testified that you felt isolated and controlled. Yet, according to bank records, you had complete access to all marital accounts. Is that correct? Yes, but... And you routinely met with friends, attended school functions, and occasionally took weekend trips. In fact, you took quite a few weekend trips, didn't you? 7 weekends over the past 18 months, according to your credit card statements. Claire shifted uncomfortably. Those were wellness retreats. That's interesting, because on 3 of those weekends, you informed your husband you were taking the children to visit your mother. Were the children present at these wellness retreats? Sometimes I needed time alone. My mother watched them. I understand. So, you lied to your husband about your actual location. Claire's lawyer objected, but the judge overruled the objection. The foundation was laid. Claire was a liar. Next, Jennifer called me to the stand. I testified about being an engaged father, coaching Little League, helping with homework, and preparing breakfast every morning. I showed the court my meticulously kept journal and documentation. I played videos from our home security cameras showing completely normal family dinners, me helping the kids with school projects, and Claire and me having calm discussions about household management. There was no abuse shown in those videos. They simply showed an unremarkable, normal family. But the defining moment came after the lunch break. Your Honor, Jennifer announced, we would like to call Andrea Patterson to the stand. Claire's face turned white as a sheet. Trevor, who had been sitting in the gallery once more, stood up suddenly and walked right out of the courtroom. Andrea walked in, 7 months pregnant, her obvious belly visible even under the conservative dress she'd chosen. She placed her hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. Miss Patterson, Jennifer started. Do you know the petitioner, Claire Mitchell? I know of her. I have never met her personally. How do you know of her? She has been having an affair with my husband, Trevor, for over 2 years. The courtroom went utterly silent. Even the court reporter paused typing for a second. And how do you know this to be true? Mr. Mitchell showed me evidence. Text messages, financial records, hotel receipts. I confronted my husband, and he confessed to the affair. Jennifer guided Andrea through the evidence. The messages where Claire and Trevor talked about their future, the times they met while deceiving their spouses, and the money Claire had concealed in a separate account, funds Trevor had contributed to, presumably in preparation for their life together. Then came the most destructive part. Miss Patterson, did your husband ever discuss Mr. Mitchell with you? Yes. After I confronted Trevor about the affair, he told me that Claire had a strategy. She was going to divorce her husband and claim he was abusive. Trevor said Claire informed him it was the most effective method to obtain full custody and a larger financial settlement. Trevor claimed he felt guilty participating in the plan, but Claire convinced him it was necessary. Claire's lawyer bolted up from his seat. Objection. This is hearsay upon hearsay. The judge sustained the objection, but the damage was already irreparable. The judge had heard that Claire had explicitly planned to make false accusations. Even though the testimony couldn't be used as direct proof of that fact, it corroborated everything my evidence had already suggested. After Andrea's testimony, the hearing continued for another 2 hours, but the outcome was already inevitable. The judge was not convinced by Claire's allegations of abuse. How could she be, when faced with compelling evidence that those very allegations were part of a planned legal tactic? The judge issued her ruling 3 weeks later: joint legal custody, with me receiving primary physical custody during the school year, and Claire having extended time during holidays and the summer. The judge specifically noted that Claire's lack of credibility regarding essential facts of the marriage was a significant factor in the ruling. I won my kids, not full custody, but primary custody. Most importantly, I successfully prevented Claire from ruining my reputation with false accusations. Claire and Trevor's relationship didn't last, incidentally. Once the rosy fantasy of their affair was exposed to the brutal light of reality, once they couldn't play the victims anymore, their connection quickly disintegrated. The last I heard, Trevor had relocated to a different state and was paying substantial child support to Andrea. Andrea and I still occasionally communicate, not exactly as friends, but as two individuals who survived betrayal and fought back successfully. She is thriving. She had her baby, a healthy girl. She is focused on rebuilding her life. People sometimes ask if I feel guilty about how things unfolded, about publicly exposing the affair, about asking a very pregnant Andrea to testify, about the entire spectacle in court. Here is my answer. Claire made a series of conscious decisions. She chose to be unfaithful. She chose to lie. She chose to concoct a scheme that would have devastated my relationship with my children using fabricated accusations. Every single consequence she faced was a direct result of her own actions. I didn't cause this predicament. I simply refused to be the one victimized by it. My children are coping well. Therapy has been beneficial. They are old enough to understand that sometimes adults, even parents, make severe mistakes. We are careful not to speak negatively about Claire in their presence. Jennifer was very clear that courts strongly disapprove of parental alienation, and besides, it's simply unhealthy for the children. But they know the core truth in ways appropriate for their age. They know their dad fought fiercely for them. Looking back, the instant Andrea walked into that courtroom pregnant, the moment she sat down and swore to tell the truth, that was when I realized justice was tangible. Not because Claire was punished, but because the truth prevailed. The truth, supported by solid evidence, corroborated by a witness, and backed by careful documentation. If you find yourself going through a similar experience, if someone is lying about you or planning to destroy you with baseless accusations, my advice is this: document everything. Maintain your composure. Construct your case methodically. Find your allies. And when the time comes, don't hesitate to call them to the stand, because the truth is an immensely powerful weapon, and when it's wielded correctly, it can destroy years of lies with a single testimony. Subscribe for more interesting stories.